East. I really like the Protist kingdom because they have some really neat organisms in them. I think you'll be familiar with like some like amoebas and stuff like that. So basically, we're going to be classifying Protists on two categories based on two things: how they move and how they eat. So we're going to be talking about how they move and how they eat. And that's basically how, if you look at an organism, you go, oh, it's an autotroph and it moves with a flagella. You can actually identify specifically what it is based on those two characteristics because they're so different. There's a huge variety of them. So we're at Protists and then classified based on how they move and how they eat. Yeah?
I don't know if you answered this, but can you staple it?
I wouldn't staple it yet until you get all your pages in there. If that, and you can paper clip it if you want to, but at the end of the whole shebang, I was going to hole punch them for you guys, and you guys could actually put like ribbons or something through them to hold it together.
All right.
However you want to do it in the end. Okay, so based on how they move and how they eat. Cool? All right, on your, hold on, I'm going to come right back to this. You're going to be putting a table soon, so you choose on how you want to be drawing it. But before we get here, because we're going to be talking about different organisms and then how they move and how they eat, before we get there, the basic characteristics of all protists. I know it says pro, and you want to go prokaryote. Lies, okay? Not a prokaryote. It's hard to think about it that way. But this is the first of all the eukaryotes. So just write down these couple of bullet points. You don't have to write the whole sentence out here. But the couple of bullet points that you need to know are all protists are eukaryotes. They're the simplest of all eukaryotes. Second, they live in moist environments. That's something you're familiar with because I told you they needed water for kind of regulation. So they need water for homeostasis. That's really super duper important because if not, they would die because they don't have the ability to kind of regulate their internal body very well because they don't have like organs like we do. They don't have a heart and circulatory system and lungs. They're just usually single cellular, usually, okay? So most of them are single cellular or unicellular, but there's just a couple that are multi. So on your, if you ever see a question that says, which kingdom of organisms includes both multicellular and unicellular, you would probably say Protists because that's the one that's going to have most of them. And you've already drawn this little image here. Anybody else need some time there? Okay. You've already drawn that image. So far, last week we talked about eubacteria, viruses, and archaebacteria. Archaebacteria we didn't hit too hard because it's kind of like they're really simple. They live in deep ocean vents and they live in harsh environments. So now we're hitting the Protista today, and we'll talk about fungi tomorrow, and then plants, and then animals. So we have to take a couple of days on each of these. All right, so draw yourself a chart and give leave yourself a little bit of room for sketching, and then for just these are going to be really simple, like 2-word answers. So the chart doesn't have to be huge. I found it easier to organize this information in a chart, so you don't have to write everything out. And you were just keeping your note about I'll slowly get to it. Yeah, totally. And start with 4 rows for the organisms. If we need more, we'll add more at the end. Or you can just start at the top and we'll add to it as we go. Everybody's taking like Alright, so we're going to talk about each of these. The first type of organism we're going to talk about are protists that are related to plants, and then we're going to talk to some, actually first we're going to do protists related to animals, and then plants, and then fungi. Somebody just knocked on my door. Okay. So, animal-like protists, and so what I would recommend is, we're going to write down the examples, but in my first box, I would write down animal-like protists, and then we can put the examples underneath. So, I would put right here, animal like protists, and then we'll list some examples, maybe like under here. We'll see what we can do. Alright, so animal like protists, they're like animals. So how do they eat? They are heterotrophs. They have to consume food. So they behave like animals, just basically, we call them animal-like because they are consumers. So the mode of nutrition would be heterotrophic. Mode of nutrition, heterotrophic. Write that in your chart. And then you can give a little bit of detail about that. They're predators, okay? So they're trying to catch and eat other protists that are smaller than them. That's their mode of nutrition. They also move, this is an extra fact, unicellular. Write that someplace near animal-like protists. Unicellular. All of them are unicellular. And you can see this one right here. It looks kind of like a shoe print, doesn't it? It's weird. Okay. So, and last word that relates to the word animal-like protist is called protozoans. So I'm going to show you what I would write near the chart someplace. Okay, so I would have animal-like protist. Animal-like, another word for that is protozoan. Okay. Mode of nutrition, what did I say? Right, heterotrophic, and then they're also predators, so they eat other smaller protists. The sketch, I'm going to put sketch and like characteristics here so we can kind of kill two birds with one stone here. So what was the characteristics that I said to write down? Right, unicellular. And then there are going to be a couple of types of locomotion, okay? So I'll tell you those two right now. They either have cilia or they have a flagella. Actually, there's one more. So cilia, flagella, or something called a pseudopod. Pseudopod. Those are mainly the three ways that they can move. Pseudopod is P-S-E-U-D-O pod. So with the animal-like protists, we're going to talk about two main ones, maybe three main ones, that have different modes of locomotion, but they have all the other same characteristics. So I'm going to kind of add them underneath here. Okay. And you can, if you don't see that now, I'll come back to this for you soon. All right, so two examples you want to write down underneath animal-like protists are paramecium and amoeba. So underneath your overall category of animal-like protists, write two examples, paramecium and amoeba. Oh, while I'm thinking about it, how do you think you're going to be able to remember that animal-like protists are called protozoans? Proto is like the protist part, okay? But how do you know that this right here means animal-like?
Zoo.
Zoo, thank you. You remember it because you go see animals at the zoo. You don't go see fungus at the zoo or plants at the zoo. You go see animals at the zoo. So that's how I remember protozoans refer to the animal-like ones, not the plants or the fungi-like ones. All right, so paramecium and amoeba. Those are the two that we're going to talk about. I'm going to go straight there, though. So let me see if I'm not here. Let me if I have a picture of them. All right. Let me go here first, and then we'll go back and do plants and fungi. All right, so the amoeba. The characteristics of amoeba are, one, it has pseudopods. So underneath your examples that you had, I tried to set up a table. Now I'm changing my table. You have amoeba. You need to write. You want to draw the picture of it now? It looks like that, like a splatter. This is so you have animal-like protists, and then the first example is amoeba. Okay, the characters or the parts of the cell of this amoeba cell that you need to know are these extensions here. Those are actually what the pseudopods are called. So they're like the little legs, like flubber has like little legs that can scooch across like a countertop with. Those are the pseudopods. And then a couple of other things you need to know that they have is they do have a nucleus. Well, how did I already know they had a nucleus? What kind of cell is this? Right, so this right here is a nucleus, and you're like, duh, it's a eukaryote. It has to have a membrane-bound nucleus. The third thing that's pretty important, well, actually, maybe two more, but one of the other things that's important is that it has food vacuoles. So it's just a place where it can kind of take in food and start to digest it and break it down, because it doesn't necessarily have a stomach. So it's got to break down food in another way, and it's going to have like just a larger vacuole for food. And then what's the kind of just like dotted stuff in there? Thank you, ribosomes. And then there's liquidy stuff in here, which is the cytoplasm. All right, so those are the main structures that you should know from an amoeba. All right, so how do you think they move? Pseudopods. I know that looks like sweater. They move by pseudopods, and then they're definitely heterotrophic. And I'll show you an example of how they're heterotrophic. Okay, so these pseudopods are like arms, and they're going to be able to engulf other food or organisms. Okay, so they pretty much just like blob over another organism and then take it in and suck it in and then try to eat it with or digest it with its food vacuoles. So here's kind of what that looks like. Here's the amoeba. Here's its prey. It's on the hunt. And then it goes and it kind of starts to encapsulate it. And you can see how this is actually a paramecium. It has no idea what's going on. And then all of a sudden it's in the body. What kind of cell transport is that?
Active.
Huh? That is active transport. Which type, which subcategory though? Thank you. Okay, so this is active transport. So I'm just going to kind of put engulf food. Active transport, and more specifically, it will be endocytosis. Or even more specifically, you might even say phagocytosis, which that means engulfing food. Chemiocytosis was engulfing water or liquid. All right, review so far, right? Some of it is, okay. All right, so let's do paramecium, the second type of animal-like protist. So I kind of messed up my boxes after I started. So you have like animal-like as like a large category, and then you wrote a couple of just basic basic characteristics, and now we're going to do like 2 examples for each one. So amoeba was our first example. Paramecium is our second example. All right, so paramecium, you're going to be drawing this as a huge on a worksheet just a little bit to continue with your notes. So you don't have to draw it right now, but this was the one I said it kind of looks like a shoe print. So paramecium is what it's called. It is not going to have pseudopods. It's going to have cilia. So underneath locomotion, put cilia for the paramecium. And then, so paramecium are going to have cilia specifically, and they're still heterotrophs. Amoebas had pseudopods, and they were heterotrophs too. So everything's a heterotroph so far. It's just you have to know the amoeba is the one that moves by pseudopods, and the paramecium is the one that moves by cilia. So if I asked you what kind of protozoa moves by cilia, you would tell me paramecium. Okay, so it's a little specific on their mode of locomotion. But you can see, let me see if I can make this image tiny bit bigger here. You can see that it's got some weird characteristics, okay? So it's got pores that things can go into. It's got this star right here, which I don't know what's, here it is right here. The star is actually a contractile vacuole. So if you're a big vacuole and you contract, what happens to the water in that vacuole?
Pushed out.
Squeezes out, okay? This guy has this contractile vacuole, and I do want you to write down just that specific term because that's probably the most important feature of the paramecium. It's got a contractile vacuole which squeezes out water. Why would you want to squeeze out water? What happens if a unicellular organism gets too much water in it? It'll explode. It's trying to live, right? So it's got to squeeze out the excess water like a sponge does, just like to wring it out. And so it'll keep it from bursting. So protection from bursting. So that's kind of like one of the characteristics that you should know about paramecium too. A couple of other things like the amoeba has one, but that's not, it's like shining star characteristics. The paramecium definitely has to have that. And then it's got some funny stuff like it's got this is actually called an anal pore because it's like its butt, and the food comes out into it's like an esophagus. It comes into this gullet here and it comes out of the anal pore. It's pretty funny because you know it doesn't want. Some things have to bring its food in through one hole and then its waste out the same hole. I guess they don't enjoy having the food and the waste in the same hole, so they actually go in through one hole and out through the other, like normal or more complex organisms do. Okay, so that's it for the protists. Sorry for the protozoans. Here's that example I showed you earlier, and then you can see we're gonna be drawing these, so don't sketch it yet. Okay, let's do plant-like. before you do that, you don't have to write this down. The protists, the animal-like protists, the protozoans, they have some really other cool examples that we can talk about, and you can write down maybe just the word plasmodium, which is the, see if I have it up here, right here. Plasmodium, it is actually the protist that causes malaria. We talked about it way back when we talked about malaria and sickle cell anemia. So malaria and sickle cell anemia. If you have sickle cell anemia, you actually have some sort of protection against getting malaria if you live in areas where it is very prevalent. But the thing that actually causes it is a protozoan. Its name is Plasmodium, and it lives in the Anopheles mosquitoes in their blood and their guts. Okay, so the way that it's transported is, here is, all right, so the mosquito, oh, where's my mosquito? I missed him. All right, mosquito sucks the human blood, all right? So when it does that, it puts the little Plasmodium protozoans into the person's body. They go and reproduce in the liver and the blood, and they burst out, okay? So then the blood cells, they actually get so full, the red blood cells burst, and that's bad because you definitely need your red blood cells to carry what gas? Oxygen, right. So you need those, right? Well, look at them. They're bursting open, and out comes all the little Plasmodium parasites. Then they go meet up. Two gametes meet together to make a zygote. That zygote is then going to make more and more and more of those babies. So it's a big vicious cycle where this is going to be constantly affecting a person with malaria because that protozoan, that Plasmodium, is just reproducing. Okay, so that's one example of a disease you might know of that's definitely caused by a protist. So that's kind of relevant. And then, who's ever heard of the African sleeping sickness? It's like where they just fall asleep and then they don't wake up. So African sleeping sickness is caused by the tsetse fly, and the tsetse fly carries the protist that actually is going to be inhabiting that person's, I think it's their brain cells. I can't remember. So it kind of looks like it's in their blood cells at first, and this little squiggly thing, this thing right here. That is the, I don't know what the protist name is, but it's caused by a protist that lives inside of the blood and in the brain. It causes them to just go to sleep. I think they get really bad fevers and some night sweats and stuff too, but it's really sad. So protists sometimes are really bad for you, sometimes they're okay. The plant ones I think are a little bit better. All right, so plant life. Okay, so next big category, plant-like protists. So we just talked about a bunch of animals, and we had two specific examples you definitely have to know. Now, bigger category, we have plant-like. The basic characteristics of plant-like protists are they're autotrophic. You're like, duh. They make their own food because that's what plants do. Okay, so they're autotrophic. And the reason they are capable of this is because they contain pigments. Those pigments, what's the job of the chlorophyll, by the way? It does photosynthesis, but the actual purpose of the chlorophyll is it does reflect everything but green. I'm sorry, it absorbs everything but green light. It actually takes in all light except for green. Green is what it reflects because that's why it's that color green. Okay, anyway, there's other colors that you guys know of. You guys know leaves turn red and yellow and all that other stuff. It's because they have those pigments as well. So this is actually, if you can see, do you see the red color right here? Pinky red color? That's called a red tide. If you are swimming in the ocean or in a lake or something, and you see a red tide coming to you, you have to get out, please, because it is caused by a specific plant-like protist. It's actually called like red algae. It's sometimes called dinoflagellates. It's also called something else. It's got like 3 different names. Anyway, if you see a red tide, get out because they are very, very, very toxic, and the toxins will be absorbed through your skin. Okay. It happens whenever they grow too high in numbers, and so then they take over like a huge ecosystem, and then you can see them floating on top of water. It's like just red algae. That's like thinking if you see a pond with a bunch of green algae. It's the same thing. It's just more toxic. Like you can touch algae, you can probably eat algae like out of a pond, no props. But if you eat that one, it's very toxic. I don't know how soon you would die, but I would think you would die. Okay, so protists are autotrophic, and they do not. Okay. you know how plants have like a flower and a stem, they got xylem and phloem, they got all like leaves. Those are called plant organs. No, they don't have like a brain and a stomach, but they have plant organs. These do not. Okay, they're very simple. So no organs. Just fun fact. And then the examples we're going to talk about are algae and euglena. I'm going to talk about euglena first, though. I like euglena. It's a pretty name. So you know that they have no organs, and then we're going to specifically talk about euglena first. That's the example you should know. So autotrophic. And then they do have another mode of nutrition. They use the flagella. I'm going to talk about that, though, with euglena. So the first example is euglena. Thumbs up, you ready to go? Thank you for a couple of us here. Okay. And then while you guys are writing down examples, phytoplankton you've probably heard of before. They come in lots of varieties. You can see all these images here. Phytoplankton is not just one organism. It's like a bunch of different types of organisms. And they're really cool looking and pretty. They look like stars. And this one right here is what plankton is from SpongeBob. It's I don't know if you can see it. It's this one right here. So I saw it and I was like, oh, I know what that is. So that's what plankton's supposed to be representing. It's actually, they're very scientifically correct on SpongeBob. I was very proud of them.
What is it called?
It's a type of phytoplankton. I don't know the specific scientific name, but it is that one right there. So like we got the bobcats doing their thing with science. We got SpongeBob. Pretty happy. Okay, I'm gonna skip this one for now. Let's go to my examples. I should put this in different order. Okay, so euglena, here we go. They have two abilities. Okay, they can either do autotrophic processes or heterotrophs. It's not often that you can switch and go like, yep, there ain't no food around, I'm gonna make my food. Okay, you can actually, this one can switch between autotrophism and heterotrophism. So if they are autotrophic, what color do you think they are?
Green.
Green, because they can do photosynthesis. PS for me is photosynthesis. Okay, but what if it's a dark day outside, really cloudy, no sun? Can they do photosynthesis?
No.
No. So then they can actually switch their mode of nutrition to be heterotrophs, okay? So what they do is they can actually hunt. I have too many markers on me. Okay, so they'll hunt for food when no light is available. So they're definitely like heterotrophs like we are, and they'll hunt for food. And these are all unicellular. It's just a little bitty guy, and it can go hunt and eat other types of organisms like itself, or smaller usually. And here's a picture of it, and this is one you should sketch on your paper, okay? So can I just scroll down some?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so look how pretty euglena is, and I'm going to kind of show you both of them. Oops. You can see this one has a humongous flagella. It's got this thing called an eye spot. Oh, sorry, no, that's the nucleus. Its eye spot actually lives back here someplace. I don't know where it is in this picture.
It's right there.
It's pointing. It's the labels are off on this one. Sorry. There's an eye spot. I have the other picture has it, but I'm gonna keep that one big because I think that one you can see the kind of cartoon image a bit better. The eye spot is like kind of a pigmented eye. What do you think it sees with the eye?
Light.
It sees light. It's really hard to, because you think it can see both things, but it just detects light. It's got like a photoreceptor, like if you have lights that turn on in your driveway, like a motion detector. That's kind of like a light detector. Yes, ma'am. They have mainly flagella, but they also can have cilia. I think that's it though. They don't have any pseudopods. Questions? Bottom. Rear?
Yes.
I have to look on the other image to see a better, clearer image. I just wanted you to see this one so you can see the humongous flagella. Let me see on this one, because I think this one's better labeled. It's really tiny. I don't know if I can make this any bigger. You see that little red dot? That is the eye spot. It's really tiny, but the eye spot detects light. And so if it sees light, what it's doing is, the reason the eye spot is right next to the flagella is whenever that little tiny dot detects light, it activates the flagella to swim in that direction. That's why they have to be so close, because this guy does not have a nervous system. It's not going to go, oh, I see something, let's send this signal all the way down to my foot to make me, walk that way. So since it doesn't have a complex nervous system, these things have to be really close to each other so it can talk to it and communicate and say, please swim this way, food this way. Okay, we can make food over here because there's sun. So it can do multiple things. And then you can see the chloroplasts are definitely there because it is a eukaryote, so it is allowed to have organelles. Yeah, definitely, it's got organelles. And then yet again, you see the contractile vacuole. Contractile vacuoles you'll see in a lot of protists because that's how they maintain their internal homeostasis. Yes?
Since it's plant-like, does it have a cell wall?
It does not have a cell wall. Oh, does it? Crud. I don't think it has a cell wall because I think it would be too stiff. It wouldn't be able to have that permeation that needs for the osmosis and stuff. I can check that out though, because it's not labeled here and I don't think it does from my memory. Okay, thumbs up when you're done sketching. Huh? It has modified mitochondria. You can see one right there. But the highlighted characteristics of it is that it has a chloroplast. Okay, algae, I'm not going to talk about a whole lot right now. You really know the more important one. All right, so let's go back to fungi. Oh, fun fact, you don't have to write any of these examples down, okay? Plant-like protists produce, so algae produce most of our oxygen in our atmosphere, okay? So thank you, algae, for existing, because if not, we would die. Algae is also really commonly found in ice cream. So if you eat ice cream, you probably are eating some algae. Yeah, that's what makes it like thick and colloid-like, so it will stay together instead of just be like milky and melt away. It is also in salad dressing. Algal blooms. Oh, you guys remember the algal blooms in the dead zone and the whales that die because there's no oxygen down at the bottom of the Gulf? We're talking about that. Some of us do. So what happens is farmers have the fertilizers that run off into the streams, and then the streams bring all the fertilizers down to the bottom where the Gulf is, and all that fertilizer is like a party for all the algae because they love eating it, right? So they grow and grow and grow and grow. Well, algae happen to be photosynthetic, so they're going to make a lot of oxygen. Well, then all the little aerobic bacteria, they have a party, and they take up all the oxygen from the water. So then is there any oxygen left for whales and fish? No, so then there's huge fish kills. Okay, so this is called algal blooms. There are actually a lot of algae in the lake or a lot of algae in the ocean is really, really bad because all the other animals end up having no oxygen left in the end. So, okay, and then this was just funny. Preview of algae food development and recipes. Seaweed fluorescences soup. Yum. Kombu quiche. Something algae pesto pizza. Korean style algae pancake. Yeah, feeling it? Algae con queso. Yeah. So, I'm feeling it. Yeah. Algae might be good for you in the end. Okay, last category, fungi-like protists. Fungi-like protists, highlighted word is decomposer. Alright, so fungi. I told you guys this was quick today. There's not a whole lot to write with me. Fungi-like protists have the characteristic of being decomposers. Does that mean they are autotrophic or heterotrophic?
No.
Which one? Hetero, thank you. You write in big letters next to it, hetero. Because you have to know decomposers means, yeah, it's heterotrophic because it gets its food from another source. But do fungi go around and go eat other organisms, or do they absorb their nutrients?
Absorb.
Right. Okay, so this is a special characteristic about fungi. They excrete enzymes and absorb nutrients. So that's not on the board over there, but they absorb nutrients after they've kind of slightly decomposed the source that they're sitting on, because they kind of put out some digestive nasty kind of enzymes that makes the other organism kind of start to break down, and then just absorb it. And then this other little snippet of information you need to write down. They do not have cell walls made of chitin. Okay, so normally, yeah, they've got cell walls, they've got chitin. You learned that a couple days ago. But these particular ones, they do not have those. So I don't want you to kind of say, oh yeah, all fungi, they all have all this this chitin, but because these definitely don't. Most of the time, mushrooms. Do you think mushrooms can kind of get up and move?
No.
Yeast, not really. Yeah, but there's not a lot of fungi that can get up and move. In this case, for the protist-like fungi or fungi-like protists, the slime mold example, they can move a little bit. And what they do is they kind of crawl. They kind of have like a pseudopod, but not really. So I'm not going to say they have a pseudopod, but they have a way to move. And you can see them move. This looks like pink Pepto-Bismol. This is a slime mold right here. It's like real liquid, like bumpy kind of looking. Looks real nasty. But that is a good example of a slime mold. It looks like a slime, you get a mold. Yeah.
So what is a mushroom?
A mushroom is a fungus, a true fungus. It's not a protist-like fungus. I mean, it's not a fungi-like protist.
So it's not like a plant at all?
No, it's not a plant. No, fungi, not plants at all. It's a totally different kingdom.
But not all of those are good to eat, but mushrooms are good to eat.
Some mushrooms are okay to eat. Sometimes they're not. We'll talk about fungi tomorrow. I got some images of psychedelic mushrooms up for you guys. Okay, let's talk about the last thing about fungi. Okay, with fungi mainly, the slime molds mainly is what we're talking about. This is the last writing slide for me. There are two ways that fungi can reproduce. Some other organisms, like the Euglena and the amoebas, they can reproduce similarly, but I have specifically the slime molds that we're talking about here, okay? So write down this whole little blurb about reproduction. This will just be under the table someplace because you don't have a categorization of reproduction. So protist reproduction, sexual and asexual. When they have sexual reproduction, they have to produce spores. So write this under the table, not in the table because you don't have a row or column for this. And if they're reproducing asexually, asexual just means to split, right? You just have a big cell, it grows and grows and grows, and then it splits in half. So when it's splitting in half, that's what we call mitosis. That's just cell division, nuclear division. So since they're relatively simple, that's why they can actually reproduce asexually sometimes. And then with your reproduction area, draw yourself a really simple picture. I'm going to kind of simplify this image here. Go like this, and then like this. And we're going to kind of just put two words in these boxes. Just draw a little cycle. So this is going to be representing sexual reproduction, okay? Sexual reproduction. The first thing that happens is they form spores. And then those spores come together and they're fertilized. So in parentheses though, next to the word spores, I'm going to put the word gametes and the word haploid. So there's a couple words, they all kind of mean the same because they're called, the gametes are called haploid spores. So those three words are all really related. So spores, which are gametes, and they're also haploid. Do you remember what haploid meant? They're definitely sex cells. Do they have two copies of all the chromosomes or just one copy? One. Half is half, right? Half is half. So, I'll kind of write that over here to the side. One copy of chromes is chromosomes. So I'm saying this out loud because I kind of write, that's kind of small right there. But pretty much the spores are haploid cells, those sex cells. The two sex cells come together in fertilization, right? And then once they're fertilized, they go and they make a zygote. Okay, and that zygote's just going to go and make another organism. There's not much else after that. Yes?
How do they know
how do they move? They don't have like a particular cilia or flagella or pseudopod. So I'm not going to tell you specifics. You just need to have the ability to. Okay, I won't go specific on that because then you got too many facts to remember. Try to make it as simple as I can. And I'm going to show you guys an image, a little video of them moving. Oh, so protists can all move by cilia, flagella, or pseudopod, but we don't talk about the specifics of slime mold because you guys only need to know specific ones. All right, so I have a couple little videos up for you. All right, here is the paramecium eating a yeast, okay? A yeast. Hold on. Where's Pandora? Okay. Here we go. Let's try this again. I don't know if there's actually sound to this. All right, so here's paramecium, the protozoan that looks like a shoe print. Stained with Congo red, so it's got a red pigment on the inside now. This is the one that had a mouth hole and then the anal pore. It's taking in some food on this side. Trying to anyway. It's got little cilia around it that helps it move. Austin, you can see the food on the inside of it's got a different color to it. I got my pond organisms growing again, so if I can find a euglena, like a live euglena, paramecium, I'll show you guys. So you can see they actually do move. They have like little cilia that help them move around. Alright, so it's done eating. This is my favorite. I love euglena because it's so pretty. Here's how euglena moves.
Euglena does not have a rigid cell referred to as a pellicle,
Alright.
so the shape changes as the organism moves.
Alright, so it just said it has no cell wall, so the answer is our question. No cell wall, you can see how flexible it is. What's the green stuff in there? Chlorophyll inside a chloroplast, right? What's the little thing in the back? Flagella. Do you see, let me see if I can find it again. Do you see that here? There's like a one kind of, well, you can't really see it. There's a darkened spot in the back by the flagella. That is the eye spot. That says that can detect light and determine where the light, where it should be going to find some sunlight to do or do photosynthesis, or it's going to be hunting as a heterotroph. Chandler, pick your head up. All right, and then the last one. Oops, not fungi. Last one. These are the slime molds. I'm going to kind of scooch this video because it's kind of, well, no, this one's kind of short. Here's slime molds. They can move. And this guy studied at Princeton for nearly 70 years. Holy cow. He made the film then. So those slime molds, they're actually like a large community. It says, yeah, they exhibit some sort of intelligence. They communicate with each other when they're all separated, and they can pull themselves together. So here's them pulling themselves together. They communicate with them. So what happens is sometimes slime molds need to get to like a higher location. So they build like a column of slime mold guys to stalk. You can see them there. So they form this like column of slime mold organisms together. And they do this because if they get higher, sometimes they can produce these kind of spores. It's all about survival of your species. So if you can get your spores out, you can survive. So they always want to build in the column. They're sacrificing for the team on top. They're like a big happy family. And they do that because they have to be able to reproduce. And they credit all it to that guy. So he found out that they actually have some sort of intuition about reproduction. All right. I'm going to tell you guys what I want you to do, and then you guys can get going for your stretch here. I'm going to skip the paramecium drawing for now. I'm going to come back to it at the end of class. We're going to do something called microviewers. So you can do this in your little book. These are really cool because you don't actually have to have a real microscope in front of you. These are super easy to work, okay? They are plastic, so don't like throw them around, they might break. But it's like, you guys remember those little things where when you were little, you could like click through slides, like on like a, I forget what it's called though. It's a little clicky picture thing. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Clicky picture thing, okay. So pretty much this is a clicky picture thing without the clickies. Alright, so you got a couple of different cards, okay? So this is called Kingdom Monera, this just means bacteria, okay? And there's like a film stripping, okay? And there's one for bacteria, fungi, which we've not talked about, but I think you guys are smart enough to figure out some of these without me talking about. We'll talk about those more tomorrow. And protozoa, so which type of protist? Animal-like one, right? So you got 3 little cards you're going to be picking up. But when you get in here, you're just going to be looking where the arrow is. There's an arrow on this side of the film strip. And when you slip it in, there's a little slot in the side. You slip it in the slot, and you actually can hold it up. Maybe get some light on there. Get some light, and you actually can see all the organisms, okay? So it's like a mini microscope. All right, so everybody's going to be able to get their own. So I've got plenty of them here and here. What you're going to do is you're just going to kind of circle your way, grab a micro viewer, grab one of each of these papers, and the actual question sheet that you're going to be making your observations about. Okay, this specifies what you're looking for specifically. Okay.
Can we put this in our
You guys can do this at your desk because I've got stuff all at the lab station. You can grab one now. You gotta grab this card.
I will. I will.
You guys can grab micro viewer back.
Why did you? I didn't even get that.
You gotta circle around.
I read like all that.
Circle around. That's the line over there. Or if you do, don't mix up the film strips. If not, I'll go back through all of them and then get them to below. So do this about 30 minutes and then we'll get our drawing coding at the end. If you sit next to somebody, you need to ask them some questions. That is totally fine. Just make sure you guys are on track.
Hey, are we in the PC lab today? Are we in the PC lab today? You don't know. That's all I have to say.
You guys are doing this in your little piece of book that you're
I feel like we're talking since the picture of it.
So the first one you're starting with is Kingdom Monera, which is bacteria. Kingdom Monera. Yeah, you're answering all the questions. Is it missing one?
Is this? Can you write on this paper?
No, right in your book. All these answers are in your book. You guys are writing the answers.
Are you amazed about what you're saying? Yeah.
Use the arrow. Like the arrow first, but I'll put it on fast.
So do we start?
I'm not, I just think so. You guys are gonna keep writing things.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
What are the two kingdoms now?
Wait, no, go back to the nucleus. Go to the left. The one that's cut in half. The Kingdom Vanera.
If you look on the scene,
Oh, yeah, that's on.
So no, why does one of them have an F on it?
You don't need anything. Some of them you might have to, or you know, these are questions you
Oh, do we have to do criteria on this one?
You guys are starting at Kingdom Monero, which is bacteria. You're starting at number 1 on the sheet. Bacteria kingdoms, and you're doing Protists kingdoms, and you're going to do fungi
She
kingdoms.
said number 1.
You're starting at the first This is a review from last week.
No, you're not.